He offered her a simple meal on a busy city street, never imagining that the hungry girl he helped would one day return as a billionaire, changing not just her life, but the world around her. On a bustling morning in the city, Jonathan Hayes, a wealthy businessman used to the rhythm of luxury and control, noticed a young girl hunched over the curb outside a cafe. Her clothes were torn, her shoes worn, and her small hands trembled as she picked through discarded scraps for food. Most people passed without a glance, but Jonathan couldn't ignore her quiet determination. Something in her eyes spoke of resilience, of intelligence, and of a spirit that refused to give up despite hunger and hardship. On impulse, he approached her and offered a meal, an act of kindness that seemed small in the moment, but would set the stage for a life-changing journey neither of them could have predicted. On a busy, sunlit morning in the heart of the city, Jonathan Hayes walked briskly down the crowded streets, his polished shoes clicking against the marble pavement. He was a man used to attention, wealth, and control. Everything in his life had a rhythm, a plan, and a certain expectation of success. Yet, on this particular morning, something unusual caught his eye. Near the entrance of an elegant cafe, almost hidden by the shadows of passers-by, sat a young girl no older than 15 or 16. Her clothes were worn and patched in several places, her shoes were broken at the toes, and her small hands clutched a crumpled paper cup. She was hunched over, searching through discarded food wrappers, moving with a quiet desperation that made the bustling crowd seem almost cruel in its indifference. Most people walked by without a second glance, their eyes fixed on their own errands, their coffee cups, or their phones. But Jonathan noticed her. Something about the way she moved with quiet determination, despite her obvious hunger, made him stop. He watched for a moment, hesitant at first. He had seen poverty before. Certainly it was part of the world he moved through. But there was something different about this girl. She didn't beg, didn't shout, didn't appear angry or bitter. There was a calm resilience in her eyes, a spark that said she hadn't yet given up. Jonathan felt a sudden tug in his chest, an impulse he couldn't ignore. He approached her slowly, not wanting to startle her. "Hey," he said gently, "would you like something to eat?" The girl looked up, her eyes wary. For a moment she seemed unsure whether he was serious or just passing a cruel joke. Hunger had taught her caution. But when she saw the sincerity in his gaze, a tiny flicker of hope appeared. She nodded, too shy to speak. Jonathan smiled, reached into his pocket, and pulled out some money. But instead of handing it to her immediately, he suggested they go inside the cafe. The girl hesitated, glancing at the polished glass doors and the neatly dressed patrons who were sipping their lattes and typing on laptops. Clearly, this world was foreign to her, but her hunger outweighed her caution. She followed him inside. Once seated at a small table near the window, Jonathan ordered a simple meal for her, a sandwich, some fruit, and a glass of milk. He didn't overwhelm her with questions, didn't pry into her past. He simply watched her eat, noticing the way she savored every bite, as if it were a rare treasure. Her gratitude was quiet but genuine, expressed in small nods and shy smiles that seemed to carry the weight of all she had endured. As they sat together, Jonathan felt a strange connection. He realized he didn't know her name, her story, or how she had ended up on the streets. Yet, in that moment, he felt a responsibility, a need to do more than just give her food. He wanted to understand, to help, in a way that might actually change the course of her life. After the meal, he handed her some money. "This is for you," he said. "Use it for what you need." She accepted it reluctantly, her eyes wide with surprise. It was the first time anyone had offered her help without judgment, without suspicion. She mumbled a quiet thank you, her voice barely audible, yet it carried the weight of sincere gratitude. Jonathan watched her walk away, feeling a mixture of satisfaction and curiosity. Who was she? What challenges had she faced? And what could he do to make a real difference in her life? That brief encounter, which seemed so ordinary at the time, left a lasting impression on Jonathan. He couldn't stop thinking about the girl, her resilience, her quiet strength. For the first time in a long while, he felt a personal connection to someone outside his world of wealth and influence. He realized that sometimes Life's most important moments came not from boardrooms or bank statements, but from small acts of kindness, from noticing someone who had been overlooked by everyone else as he continued on his way. Jonathan felt a strange sense of anticipation, a feeling that he had witnessed the beginning of something significant. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing for certain: that young girl, who had nothing but courage and determination, had sparked something in him that he couldn't ignore, even as days and weeks passed. He found himself thinking about her, wondering how she was doing, whether she had enough to eat, whether she was safe. That brief act of generosity had created a bond, invisible yet undeniable, between two very different worlds. Jonathan realized that sometimes a simple meal could be the first step toward changing a life, and perhaps, in ways he could not yet imagine, changing his own as well. Over the next few weeks, Jonathan Hayes couldn't stop thinking about the young girl he had met outside the cafe. Her face kept appearing in his mind during quiet moments, and he found himself wondering not just about her hunger, but about her life, her dreams, and what kind of person she was beyond the tattered clothes and cautious demeanor. One morning, driven by a mix of curiosity and concern, he returned to the same area, hoping to see her again. Luck was on his side. She was there, sitting quietly on the same curb, her small frame hunched over a worn notebook as she scribbled notes in pencil. Jonathan approached slowly, careful not to startle her. "Hi," he said softly. "It's good to see you again. How have you been?" The girl looked up, startled at first. Her eyes were wary, scanning him for signs of judgment or mockery. When she realized he was the same man who had offered her a meal, her expression softened. I'm okay," she said quietly. "I've been trying to keep busy." Jonathan noticed the notebook in her hands. "What are you writing?" he asked, genuinely interested. She hesitated, but then, seeing the warmth in his eyes, she showed him her notebook. Inside were carefully written sentences, drawings, and even a few attempts at small calculations. Despite her circumstances, it was clear she had a sharp mind and a natural curiosity about the world. Jonathan was impressed. He saw a young girl who was not only surviving, but trying to learn, to grow, to make something of herself even when life had given her very little. Over the next few encounters, Jonathan learned more about her story. Her name was Emma. She had lost her parents at a young age and had no close relatives to care for her. Life had forced her to fend for herself on the streets, and she had learned skills no child should have to acquire finding food, seeking shelter, and avoiding danger. But what struck Jonathan most was not the hardship she had endured, but her determination to rise above it. Emma had dreams. Small, fragile dreams, but dreams nonetheless. She wanted to study, to understand the world, to find a way to create a better life for herself. Jonathan felt a growing responsibility toward her. He began leaving food and small amounts of money at the cafe, making sure she had something to eat and a bit of security for the day. But he realized that temporary relief was not enough. He wanted to give her something that could truly change her life. One day he asked her to meet him at his office. She hesitated, nervous about entering a world so different from her own, but eventually agreed. In his office, surrounded by the elegance and comfort she had never known, Emma felt a mix of awe and intimidation. Jonathan spoke to her with patience and kindness, asking about her interests, her favorite subjects in school, her dreams for the future. He could see her eyes light up as she spoke about reading, learning, and her desire to understand business and technology. Jonathan realized that Emma's hunger for knowledge was just as important as her hunger for food. He decided to sponsor her education, arranging for a tutor to help her catch up on years of missed schooling. He also ensured she had access to books, notebooks, and other learning materials, creating an environment where she could explore her potential. For Jonathan, this was more than charity. It was an investment in a human being he believed had the capability to achieve great things. Emma, for her part, was cautious but eager. She had learned to trust very few people. But Jonathan's consistent support and genuine interest in her growth slowly earned her confidence. She began to see the possibility of a future that had once seemed impossible, a life where she could learn, excel, and perhaps even escape the cycle of poverty. As months passed, Jonathan watched her progress with a mix of pride and fascination. He observed her dedication, her late nights of study, and her refusal to let setbacks discourage her. Emma's natural intelligence, combined with her resilience and work ethic, made it clear that she was extraordinary. Despite the odds stacked against her, she had started to carve a path for herself, one small step at a time. Their relationship remained grounded in trust and respect. Jonathan did not pressure her or demand repayment. Instead, he became a mentor, someone she could turn to for guidance, advice, and encouragement. He often reminded her that life was not just about survival, but about growth, curiosity, the courage to pursue dreams even when the world seemed indifferent. Emma's story also began to impact Jonathan. He saw in her struggle a reflection of the human spirit, a reminder that wealth and comfort were privileges, not guarantees of happiness or purpose. Through helping her, he rediscovered a sense of fulfillment he hadn't felt in years. Each progress report, each small victory she achieved, felt personal to him, as though he were witnessing the rise of someone truly remarkable. By the end of this period, Emma had transformed from a cautious, hungry girl into a young woman with hope, knowledge, and ambition. She still faced challenges. Poverty had left its mark. The path ahead was uncertain, but she now had tools, mentorship, and belief in herself. Jonathan Hayes had not just helped her with food, he had given her a chance at a new life, a seed of opportunity that, if nurtured, could grow into something extraordinary, even on ordinary days. The memory of their first encounter remained vivid in both of them. The moment, a simple act of kindness, sparked a bond that would shape the course of Emma's future. Neither could predict how far it would go, but in that shared journey, both were changed forever. Emma's journey after receiving Jonathan's support was far from easy. The world she lived in had been harsh and unyielding, and though she now had a small chance at a better life, every step forward came with obstacles. Poverty had left deep scars not just on her body and clothing, but on her confidence and her sense of security. Yet she had something more powerful than anything money could buy: determination. Each morning, Emma woke early, often before the sun had risen, and worked tirelessly on her studies. Jonathan had arranged a tutor for her, but she spent additional hours at the small public library he had guided her to, reading everything she could get her hands on. Books became her escape, her education, and her inspiration. She absorbed stories of people who had overcome difficulties, accounts of scientific discoveries, and lessons in business and finance. Even when her stomach growled from lack of food or her body ached from long days on her feet, she pushed herself, motivated by the vision of a life beyond struggle. Emma faced many setbacks. Her neighborhood was dangerous, with children often being drawn into crime just to survive. She had to navigate through the streets carefully, avoiding trouble and resisting the temptation to give in to quick, easy solutions for money. Some days she returned home exhausted and disheartened, wondering if she would ever truly escape the cycle of poverty, but she refused to quit. Each challenge became a test of her resolve, each difficulty a lesson in perseverance. Her relationship with Jonathan continued to grow. Though they communicated mostly through brief meetings and letters, he encouraged her not just to learn, but to dream. He taught her about opportunities, about ways to think creatively, and about the importance of resilience and ethics in life. Jonathan emphasized that intelligence alone was not enough. Character and persistence were just as important. Emma absorbed these lessons with the seriousness of someone who knew they could not afford failure. As time passed, Emma's hard work began to pay off. She excelled in her studies, impressing not only her tutor, but also the teachers and mentors she encountered along the way. Scholarships became available to her, opening doors she had never imagined. These opportunities allowed her to move into a better school environment, meet peers who inspired her, and gain exposure to ideas and experiences far beyond the streets she had once known. Despite these improvements, life remained a struggle. Emma often felt isolated. She had few friends who truly understood her world, and even though she met at school, sometimes looked down on her humble beginnings. But instead of being discouraged, she used these experiences as motivation. She reminded herself constantly why she was working so hard not for approval, but for a future she could shape with her own hands. Along the way, Emma discovered a love for problem-solving and innovation. She began experimenting with small business ideas, creating ways to make money that relied on her intelligence rather than desperation. She learned to budget carefully, invest in small opportunities, and think critically about risk and reward. These early lessons in entrepreneurship gave her confidence and a sense of agency she had never felt before. She realized that even though she had begun with nothing, she could build something meaningful if she stayed disciplined and clever. Emma's mentors were crucial during this time. Jonathan connected her with other successful professionals who offered advice, guidance, and sometimes just a listening ear. These mentors exposed her to industries she had never considered, from technology to finance, and encouraged her to aim high. Emma listened intently, asked thoughtful questions, and implemented the guidance she received with precision. Her hunger for knowledge was insatiable, and she quickly outgrew the simple tutoring sessions Jonathan had first arranged for her. While her education and opportunities expanded, Emma never forgot where she came from. She remained humble and empathetic, understanding the struggles of those around her because she had lived them. She often helped other children in her neighborhood, tutoring them in small ways, sharing what she had learned and showing them that education and perseverance could create a way out of hardship. These small acts reinforced her belief that success was not just personal, but something that could ripple outward to help others. By the time Emma reached her late teens, she had transformed into a young woman of remarkable intellect, poise, and vision. Her early hunger had been replaced by ambition. Her fear had been replaced by confidence. She had not only caught up academically, but had begun to surpass her peers. Scholarships and awards recognized her talent. But it was her relentless discipline and creativity that truly set her apart. Emma's journey was also shaping her emotionally. She learned patience, humility, and the value of persistence. She understood that failures were not the end, but lessons. Each setback became an opportunity to adapt and grow. She developed a mindset that was analytical, strategic, and bold, yet deeply compassionate. These traits would later define her not only as a successful businesswoman, but as someone who inspired others to rise above adversity. Through all of this, Jonathan remained a guiding presence, though he allowed her independence. He celebrated her successes quietly, proud of the person she was becoming. He knew that the support he had given, food, money, guidance, was only the beginning. Emma had taken the tools he provided and turned them into something extraordinary. She had shown that resilience, intelligence, and determination could transform a life, even from the most desperate circumstances. By the time Emma prepared for higher education and larger ventures into business and technology, she was no longer the fragile, hungry girl who had first sat on the city curb. She was a young woman, ready to face the world with ambition, clarity, and courage. Her journey through struggle and growth had forged a character that was rare and powerful, a character that would one day allow her to achieve unimaginable success, even during the toughest moments. Emma's mind often drifted back to Jonathan. She remembered his kindness, his belief in her potential, and how a simple act of generosity had set everything into motion. That memory became a source of inspiration, a reminder that her achievements were not just the result of her efforts, but also of someone who had believed in her. When no one else had, Emma's story at this stage was a story of transformation, of turning hunger into hunger for knowledge, struggle into determination, and despair into vision. She had not only survived, she had begun to thrive. The girl who once scavenged for food was now shaping her destiny, and the lessons of resilience, ambition, and gratitude would guide her as she stepped into the wider world, ready to face challenges far greater than those she had known, and to turn opportunity into extraordinary success. Years had passed since Emma had first met Jonathan Hayes outside the cafe. The shy, hungry girl who once scavenged for food had transformed into a confident, intelligent young woman. Her relentless pursuit of education, her sharp mind, and her determination to succeed had carried her far beyond the narrow streets of her childhood. She had excelled in school, earned scholarships, and gained experience in various internships and projects, eventually launching her own technology startup. Slowly but surely, she built her company into a thriving enterprise, attracting investors, clients, and recognition. Her name became known not just for her business acumen, but also for her story of perseverance. Despite her achievements, Emma never forgot the people and circumstances that had shaped her life. She remained humble and deeply aware of the struggles of those less fortunate. As her wealth and influence grew, so did her desire to give back. She wanted to create opportunities for children and young adults who, like her, had faced hardships that seemed insurmountable. This desire led her to plan a large charity gala in her hometown, aimed at raising funds for underprivileged youth education and mentorship programs. She wanted to provide them with the guidance, resources, and encouragement that had made such a profound difference in her own life. When planning the gala, Emma made a decision that surprised even her closest associates. She wanted Jonathan Hayes to attend as a guest of honor. He had been her first mentor, the person who had believed in her potential when no one else had. She wanted him to see not just the success she had achieved, but also the ripple effect of his kindness. She sent him an elegant invitation, signed personally, without revealing that it was from Emma, Jonathan. Accustomed to attending charitable events and business galas, accepted politely, unaware that the young woman he had once helped would be the centerpiece of the evening. The night of the gala arrived, with the venue transformed into a sparkling hall filled with lights, music, and elegant decorations. Wealthy donors mingled with educators, community leaders, and young beneficiaries of Emma's programs. Jonathan entered, greeting familiar faces and appreciating the grandeur of the event. He didn't yet realize that the organizer of the gala, the person being celebrated, was someone he had known. Long ago, as the speeches began, Emma stepped onto the stage. She was poised, articulate, and commanding, a far cry from the timid girl who had once sat hunched over a curb. She spoke about her journey, about the importance of education, mentorship, and opportunity. She shared stories of children she had helped, emphasizing that a little support could change the trajectory of a life. Her words were inspiring, heartfelt, and genuine. Resonating with every person in the room, Jonathan listened, captivated by the speech. Her voice sounded familiar, and her story stirred a sense of déjà vu. As she concluded, she turned to acknowledge her guests, scanning the crowd with a radiant smile. When her eyes met Jonathan's, recognition struck both of them like lightning. He froze for a moment, his mind racing. Could this be the same girl he had helped all those years ago? The girl who had sat outside the cafe, timid and hungry? Emma saw the astonishment in his eyes and nodded, her smile widening. The reunion was emotional. Jonathan approached her, and they embraced briefly, a gesture full of gratitude, pride, and shared history. They spoke quietly, reflecting on how far she had come and how much she had achieved. Emma thanked him for believing in her when it seemed no one else would, acknowledging that his simple act of kindness had been the catalyst for everything she had built. Jonathan, in turn, expressed his pride and amazement at her resilience, ingenuity, and generosity. The rest of the evening was filled with celebration. But the moment between Emma and Jonathan remained the most memorable. Guests were unaware of the deep connection between the two, but for them, it was a culmination of years of struggle, growth, and eventual triumph. The gala was a success, raising substantial funds for the programs Emma supported. But it also symbolized a full-circle moment. A girl who had once been overlooked and hungry now stood at the center of a room, empowering others and acknowledging the person who had first given her hope. Following the event, Emma and Jonathan maintained a closer relationship. He continued to advise her when asked, but more importantly, they shared a bond built on respect and mutual admiration. Emma's story became an example for many, demonstrating that early support, belief in potential, and perseverance could transform lives in ways that were unimaginable at the time. Jonathan, inspired by her success, expanded his charitable efforts, investing in education and mentorship programs across the country. For Emma, Returning to her roots was more than an act of gratitude, it was a statement. It was proof that one person's compassion could create a ripple effect that touched countless lives. She continued to focus on her work, always remembering the streets, the hunger, and the mentor who had seen her worth when she couldn't see it herself. Her life was now a powerful blend of achievement and service, a testament to resilience, intelligence, and the enduring power of kindness. The reunion also left a lasting impact on Jonathan. It reminded him that true success wasn't measured solely by wealth or status, but by the ability to make a meaningful difference in someone's life. The encounter reinforced his belief in mentorship, compassion, and the human potential to rise above circumstance. He realized that the small act of helping a hungry girl decades ago not only changed her life, but had created a legacy of empowerment and inspiration that would continue for generations. Emma's story, now shared widely through media and speaking engagements, inspired many. Young people, especially those facing adversity, saw her as proof that they could overcome obstacles with determination, learning, and the guidance of supportive mentors. Jonathan, proud and humbled, often recounted their story as an example of the extraordinary outcomes of simple kindness. In that moment, at the gala, it became clear that life was not just about wealth, success, or recognition. It was about moments of connection, choices to help, and the courage to act when someone needed support. Emma had transformed from a hungry, uncertain girl into a woman of vision and influence, and her return as a successful, philanthropic leader symbolized the profound power of compassion, opportunity, and perseverance. Their story, captured in that emotional reunion, became more than a personal victory, became a symbol of hope. It demonstrated that even the smallest act of generosity could ripple through time, changing lives in ways that were impossible to predict. Emma and Jonathan, two lives intertwined by fate and kindness, had proven that belief in human potential, when paired with opportunity and hard work, could create a story of triumph that inspired everyone who heard it. Emma's life after the gala continued to grow in remarkable ways, yet she remained deeply connected to her roots. She never forgot the streets, the hunger, or the struggle that had defined her early years. Each success she achieved was tempered by a sense of responsibility, not just to herself, but to the countless young people whose lives mirrored the challenges she had faced. She knew that her journey from a hungry, uncertain girl to a billionaire entrepreneur and philanthropist was not solely a product of her own effort. It was also the result of the small, selfless acts of people like Jonathan Hayes, who had believed in her when no one else did. With her company thriving and her influence expanding, Emma devoted a significant portion of her time to philanthropy. She founded an organization dedicated to providing mentorship, education, and basic necessities to underprivileged children. Her programs focused not only on immediate relief, like food and clothing, but also on long-term empowerment, scholarships, tutoring, internships, and career guidance. She wanted to create opportunities that would allow these children to rise above their circumstances, just as she had. Emma's work caught the attention of the media. She was invited to speak at conferences, universities, and international forums. Her story inspired people from all walks of life, but she remained humble. In every speech, interview, or panel discussion, she made it a point to mention Jonathan Hayes, acknowledging the role his early support had played in shaping her life. She spoke of him not only as a mentor, but as a symbol of the power of kindness, the idea that a single act of generosity could create ripple effects beyond imagination. Jonathan, for his part, continued to support Emma's initiatives quietly. Seeing her grow into a capable, compassionate leader filled him with pride. He often reflected on the first time he had offered her a meal, marveling at how a simple gesture had evolved into a lifelong impact. He began investing more intentionally in programs for disadvantaged youth, inspired by Emma's achievements and by the tangible proof that mentorship and guidance could alter the course of a life. Emma's influence also extended into the business world. Her companies were not only profitable, but ethical, socially responsible, and innovative. She implemented programs that trained and hired young people from underprivileged backgrounds, giving them the skills and experience they needed to succeed. She believed that success was meaningful only when it had a positive effect on the community and on future generations. Despite her busy schedule and global recognition, Emma made it a priority to stay personally involved with the children and families her programs served. She visited schools, mentored students directly, and encouraged them to dream bigger than their circumstances might allow. Her presence was both inspiring and reassuring. She was living proof that a child born into hardship could not only survive, but thrive, given the right support, determination, and opportunities. Emma also cultivated a network of mentors, investors, and supporters who shared her vision. She understood that change required collaboration, and that by bringing others into her mission, she could expand its impact exponentially. Each partnership she formed was carefully chosen, ensuring that her programs maintained their integrity and focus on empowerment. Over time, Emma's story became a symbol of hope across the nation. Schools used her life as an example of perseverance in the face of adversity. Charitable organizations cited her work as a model for mentorship programs, and aspiring entrepreneurs saw her as proof that innovation and compassion could coexist. Her journey demonstrated that success was not merely about wealth or recognition, but about the ability to lift others along the way. Jonathan watched all of this unfold with a quiet sense of fulfillment. The girl he had once helped, the one he had assumed would struggle endlessly, had surpassed every expectation. Her achievements reaffirmed a truth he had long known: kindness, when paired with belief in someone's potential, could create extraordinary results. He often spoke about her in philanthropic circles, emphasizing the importance of mentorship and support for those at the beginning of their journey. Emma and Jonathan's story also became a lesson in humility and perspective. Jonathan, who had once measured success in terms of business deals and wealth accumulation, came to appreciate that the true measure of influence was the ability to transform lives. Emma, who had once measured survival in terms of food and shelter, came to understand that real success included the ability to inspire, mentor, and provide opportunities for others. Their shared experiences highlighted the interconnection between giving and receiving, between opportunity and responsibility. As Emma's programs grew, she began creating initiatives that went beyond education and basic needs. She launched entrepreneurship labs, innovation hubs, and leadership workshops for young people in underprivileged communities. Her goal was not just to give them opportunities, but to equip them with the mindset, skills, and confidence to lead and innovate. She wanted them to become creators, problem solvers, future leaders, just as she had learned to be. Emma also used her platform to advocate for systemic change. She worked with policymakers to improve access to quality education and mentorship. Programs emphasizing the long-term economic and social benefits of investing in youth. Her efforts gained recognition worldwide, but she remained grounded, focused on the children and communities she served rather than personal accolades. Despite all her success, Emma's personal connection with Jonathan remained central to her story. They frequently met to discuss her initiatives, share ideas, and reflect on the progress of her programs. Jonathan continued to offer guidance and support, but it was clear that Emma had grown into a leader in her own right. Their relationship evolved into one of mutual respect, admiration, and deep personal connection, a testament to the enduring power of early encouragement and belief in potential. Through all these achievements, Emma never lost sight of the simple truth that had started it all. One act of kindness had the power to change a life. She often visited the streets where she had once scavenged, quietly observing children who reminded her of herself. She spoke to them, listened to their stories, and provided guidance when she could. For Emma, these moments were reminders of why she had worked so hard and why her success had to be meaningful beyond herself. In the end, Emma's life became a story not just of financial success or fame, but of transformation, empowerment, and legacy. Her journey illustrated that resilience, hard work, mentorship, and compassion could combine to produce outcomes far greater than anyone could imagine. She had turned personal hardship into global impact, ensuring that the support she had once received would ripple forward to help countless others. Jonathan and Emma's story left an enduring mark on everyone who knew it. It became a story of hope, inspiration, and proof that human potential could flourish when nurtured. Their lives intertwined, demonstrating that the smallest gestures offered meal, a moment of belief, a helping hand could create legacies that transcended wealth, status, and time. Emma's journey from a hungry, uncertain girl to a billionaire philanthropist and mentor was a testament to the extraordinary power of kindness, opportunity, and perseverance. Through Emma, Jonathan saw the ultimate reward of compassion, a life transformed, multiplied in influence, and extended to touch the lives of countless others. And through Jonathan, Emma remembered the lesson she would carry forever, that a single act of belief in someone's potential could change the world not just for that person, but for everyone they would go on to inspire. Their story fully realized was a legacy of hope, showing that the combination of courage, opportunity, and generosity could create a future brighter than anyone could have imagined.